Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate and the League One podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by my regular co-host, Ed Walker, a Burton Albion supporter and an expert on all things League One. More about the Brewers later. But first of all, we're joined by Matt Farley from the Stevenage Football Club podcast, in buoyant mood as ever, but especially after a 3-0 victory at Leyton Orient. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, look, Gav, thanks for having me on, buddy. Good to see both you chaps. Look, you know me. I'm so happy at the minute. I'm buzzing. Ed, I'm so sorry. I know Ed's like, oh, not this again.
I went in to start this thinking I'm going to try and have a bigger smile than Matt at the start. No, it just ain't happening. I can't compete with you, Matt. You're unbeatable.
Oh, well, look, it's like, I have to keep pinching myself, boys. You know, I have to keep pinching myself. It's been an incredible start. I'm brilliant. Sitting in my car, had to put the top on. I'm just so happy.
Oh, brilliant stuff. So what do you think was the key to that victory at Leyton Orient last time out there, Matt?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, we just did all the things that we've done in the opening 5 matches, really. You know, we play our style that we like to think is very effective. We get the ball forward quickly, and then we play with the creative players in that final third, like your Jordan Roberts and your Jamie Reeds, and we even had a couple of new boys in the squad with Charlie McNeil, who looked brilliant, by the way, and scored the opener.
Got a nice goal early on, didn't he?
Yeah, really nice finish. Got some very good statistics at a young age. So I think that's really all we did, to be honest with you. We just played the similar style that we've played in the opening 5 matches. We didn't do anything different, if anything. And I hated saying this to Parksy in the chat. We've actually got quite a big injury list. So we actually had players playing in different positions. We had Finley Burns, who's a centre-back. We had to play in midfield because we don't have our starting midfield players.
I'm terribly sorry. I've got to answer the door. It's banged quite loudly, so just...
Finley Burns, Matt.
Oh, yeah, Finley Burns.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was fun. Finley Burns. So it's been one of these things where we've had injuries, so we didn't really do anything different for Leyton Orient. We just played the same style that we love and that we're effective at. And 3-0 was just a fantastic result for us, and to see us up there after 6 games in the top 3, it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, look, we just did all the things that we know that we're good at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's interesting to see that Dan Sweeney's come back into the team, and I almost think because of your defensive strength and the number of options that you've got, you almost forget how good Dan Sweeney is. I mean, some of his passing in the opposing half is almost like a midfielder at times.
It is, and I think I've kind of felt sorry for Sweens in a way, because he had his groin injury and he had surgery on that in the off season in the summer. And I think we started League One this season and we knew that he wasn't going to play the first month because it was suggested or predicted around September he was going to be back. And, Finley Burns has come into the side and been so good. And I think everyone's kind of gone, oh, well, is Sweens even going to start now when he comes back? What's going to happen? It's same with Terence, to be fair. What's going to happen? These players are probably going to start on the bench for us. And Dan Sweeney, he played his first match last week in the League Cup away at Exeter and was brilliant. It was like he'd played all the matches. He breathed through the game, didn't look tired, got man of the match, was brilliant. And we thought, he deserves a start on Saturday. It'd be good to get him, League One minutes. I think that was actually his first ever League One match in his career. That was really important. He scored a goal. Again, he was man of the match again. He was absolutely brilliant. It's like we've got a better version of Dan Sweeney now that we've gone up a level. So, look, Sweens is a massive part to the way that we play. The skills and attributes he has as a player really suits the style that we play. And he's a massive player. And, we talk about, I think one of the other things, what I love about our team is we've got a lot of team of winners and a team of leaders. And Dan Sweeney is a leader and he's a winner. So, he fits the squad perfectly. He's been absolutely brilliant since he's been back from the 2 games. And I think, it's even more of a selection headache for Steve now because Dan Sweeney's got to play now every week. He's been so good that he can't just be dropped unless, he's trying to get back to full fitness. But, Sweeney's been brilliant.
What a lovely dilemma to have that is. I wanted to ask you about, before I let you go, Matt, about Ben Thompson, because he was possibly one of the players where last time I spoke to you, we felt like, or you felt like, we've maybe not seen the best of him just yet. And I know from an outside perspective just how good he can be at his best if he finds those levels. Have there been signs lately of him getting to those levels?
Yeah, he's taken a little bit of a niggle at the minute, so he hasn't played the last couple of games, Ben. He wasn't involved on Saturday in the 3-0 win, and he wasn't involved last night in the trophy. So he's got a niggle at the minute. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that Ben hasn't hit his full potential with us just yet. Do I think he will? Yeah, I think given a couple of months, getting back, let things evolve, I think we'll start to see the Ben Thompson that we all kind of visioned and imagined when we first signed Ben. But no, it's a bit unfortunate with him at the minute. He's getting a niggle and then he's missing out. Again, it's a bit of a weird thing with us at the minute because we're up in the position of we've got the wins and performances we have, but we've got players out with niggles and stuff. So yeah, I hope Ben can come back and get some games in the bag because, in my opinion, I think looking at the squad we've got, really Ben's a starting player in this team.
Sure.
So it would be nice to get him back and getting games in the bag and see him starting because, you can't look past the history and the experience he's got at League One, even Championship when he was at Millwall. And that is so vital for this level that we're playing in. So, yeah, I'm hoping Ben can get back soon and get straight back into the starting 11 for us, yeah.
Sure. And just finally from me, Matt, the goalkeeping situation is a really nice one because second half of last season, you were scrambling around from almost anywhere for a goalkeeper. At one point, I thought you might have to go in goal because you had so many injuries.
I'd have done it, Gab. I would have done it as well.
I know you would. But this year you've got the goalkeeper you had last, Ashby Hammond, and you've also got Heggie, I think it is, from West Ham. It's really nice. It must be really nice to have that kind of competition.
Yeah, great issue, right? And the past over the last couple of years, the goalkeeper scenarios at our club have been terrible, you could say. But yeah, it's been great. It's been one of these things actually ever since we kicked off the opener in League One away at Northampton. It's almost like one game Tay plays and then the other game Christian plays. Steve's been kind of swapping every game, which has been really nice because we know that Tay's the starting goalkeeper, but then it gets Christian League One minutes. It gets him time in goal. And Christian's been great, by the way, when he's played. But I think we said kind of last week it would be nice to start to have Tay to play regularly now.
Yeah.
Tay's on a 2-year contract. He's made for League One, Tay. And there's a statistic about Tay as well, and I didn't actually realise this. I think it was one of the Borough fans that brought it up. But Tay Ashby Hammond's played 30 matches for us, and he's kept 15 clean sheets. So that is a statistic that you just can't look past.
I can't imagine there's too many games where he's conceded more than one as well in the other 15. So that's incredibly impressive. Listen, Matt, it's been great to have you on the show as always. I hope you got a new haircut again by the next time you come on.
I had to get it, mate. I can't look a Ruffy fan doing well, can I?
If they go up, we need to give them a mohawk or something. If they do go all the way this season, got to be doing something, Matt.
Unfortunately, I think the hairline's receding a bit too much for that, but we could give it a go. Maybe, but no, it's
not quite enough to work with. But
no,
Matt,
sorry, Gab, I was just going to say no. Thanks for having me on and all that, and massive hello to the listeners. I hope everyone's joining the platform. It's a brilliant platform. I love it.
Nice one. Cheers, mate. Take care.
Bye, guys. Bye bye.
So my next guest is Jon Palmer from the Gloucestershire Echo. Jon, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Obviously, Jon covers Cheltenham Town. And just 1 point from the first 6 games, Jon. I did watch the extended highlights of the Barnsley game, and it looked quite like you were quite competitive and not a million miles away. But again, missing that clinical edge that Alfie May provided last season.
Yeah, evening Gab, evening Ed. I was enjoying Matt's enthusiasm there. I'll try not to bring the mood down completely now.
We'll collectively do that, John. Don't worry.
Yeah, after the start Stevenage have had. But you're right, Gab. I've seen glimmers in some of the games. First half against Barnsley was pretty good. The Portsmouth performance, 0-0 draw, really good, gritty performance, created a few chances. Probably the best Cheltenham have looked is when they played a genuine front three, with Street on the right, Goodman on the left, and Keener down the middle. They have looked a bit more threatening, but the goals for column is obviously alarming. It's the longest Cheltenham have ever gone in their history without a goal. And, you have to laugh or you cry that last night against Bristol Rovers, the ball did go in the net and it was from an own goal. So a Cheltenham player still hasn't scored this season, but it's been a similar start to last season. Cheltenham had 4 points at this stage last season, one draw at Fleetwood 0-0, and they nicked a 1-0 win at Exeter. But it's been similar in terms of the pressures mounting on Wade Elliott already. He came through it last season. The board stuck with him, as we discussed before, through some tricky times last season. And I'm not resigned yet. I think Cheltenham are where everyone probably expects them to be pre-season. I've never seen a League One table in any of the seasons Cheltenham have been in it where they haven't been predicted to go down or finish bottom. So that doesn't mean you accept it, obviously, and go down with that fight. But they've lost their best player. They've probably lost arguably one of their other best players in Ryan Broom. May was always going to be difficult, and they lost Mickey Moore and two other backroom staff. So
is Ryan Broom a huge loss, John?
Not as significant as May, but they certainly would have wanted to keep him around. And to lose one of your better players to Fleetwood is a blow, isn't it? I think, because Fleetwood, it looks like, are going to be one of those teams scrapping with Cheltenham. He wouldn't have gone. He lives in Newport. I don't think he'd have moved to Fleetwood unless he was getting a significant pay rise.
That'd be a long commute, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, it's quite convenient for him at Cheltenham. He's gone to Fleetwood. Good luck to him. Wish him all the best. But Cheltenham, they can't compete with even the teams they're supposed to be competing with, if you see what I mean. So I think that there's a little bit more to it than meets the eye in terms of the challenges that Wade Elliott's faced this summer. But I've not totally chucked the towel in. But I must admit, it looks bleak at the moment.
Is the return of James Olayinka something that gives you a bit of hope?
Yeah, there was a few. So first half against Bristol Rovers, it was poor. They scored with their first proper attack, and suddenly it was 3-0 at half time.
Well, I saw you mentioned the back line by the end of it, and it was three full-backs and a midfielder, I think.
Yeah, so that actually, you're absolutely right. I think the second half effort from that back four with two wing backs in the middle, a left wing back at right back, and a centre midfielder at left back was they put a shift in second half and drew the second half 1-1. The return of Olayinka is a plus. He's still got his shoulder heavily strapped from when he dislocated it, but I think he's come back a bit quicker than everyone expected. But I don't know if you both saw, but they lost 5 players to injury yesterday. Curtis Thompson got injured in the morning of the game, woke up with a back spasm, so hopefully he's not out for too long. But 2 players were forced off in the first half. Tom Bradbury, he left the ground in a boot, and Will Goodwin was forced off in the first half. Sean Long and Grant Horton had only just gone on in place of Bradbury. They both have to come off at half time. So that's another 5. You've got Ollie Hammond's been out, George Lloyd's long term, Liam Smith's long term, Doria Henry's long term. So I've never known it in 20 years covering the club, an injury crisis like it. So that's, Cheltenham need everything to be going their way a little bit if they're going to be competitive in League One. And it's been an absolute horror show injury wise so far this season.
Yeah, I think the loss of Hammond maybe can't be underestimated, because he was the one I think the club wanted to bring in as quite a dynamic 8. I think was the description, someone who can create and score goals, very highly rated at Nottingham Forest. And I think what Cheltenham have missed at times this season is some form of link between midfield and attack. I think one of the other home games you had, I can't quite put my finger up, it might have been Northampton. It was a midfield trio of Curtis Thompson, Elliot Bonds, and Liam Sercombe, thank you. And neither of them are hugely creative, I think it's fair to say. So not having Olayinka, not having Hammond, maybe Popion from Brighton can be the difference. But it's been tough for Wade Elliott, hasn't it?
Yeah, that game, the Northampton game, was the first time Bonds and Thompson have started together, because you think that it would probably be one of them sitting in front of the back three, and then maybe a couple more. Sercombe is a bit of an all-rounder, and then maybe one more floating in behind the front men. But it was interesting, that midfield. Bonds played a bit further forward in that game. But you're absolutely right. The Hammond role, he showed a few bright signs in his first few games. Pupion's came off the bench against Barnsley and showed a couple of bright touches. Nathan Butler from Arsenal came on up front and in the same game, and he also, lifted the crowd, beat a man, got into the box, won a corner. But they had quite a few late arrivals, didn't they, in the window? 4 coming in the last week, and I think if they're gonna have a fighting chance of surviving, they need some of these lads that are unproven, really. I know some of them have been out on loan before at Accrington for Butler and Malcolm, but Pupion hasn't been out before. some of them
very highly rated, by the way. People
Yeah.
on. I spoke to some Brighton people, and they said they almost hoped he was going to get a bigger loan, maybe top end League One or Championship. So clearly they see something in him.
Is there
Yeah,
an
it was
opportunity now
interesting.
for Owen Bevan to pick up a start, do you reckon? Because I think he's
Yeah,
had two bench
Bevan
appearances
looked
up to now.
Yeah.
He looked good when he came on Saturday. Obviously, he was away. It was a bit frustrating for Wade Elliott because as pleasing it is that Cheltenham have got 5 players away on international duty at the moment, I think he could have done with some of them in to bed them in ahead of the next league game. So a lot of them came in, said hello, and disappeared again. But Bevan looked good. You're absolutely right, Gab. The reaction when Cam was announced to come into Cheltenham from Brighton, I think a few of the Brighton fans are thinking, what's he going there for? But he's going to get game time, and he's going to have a chance to showcase his talents. And I think based on the reputation he comes with, and he's in action for Australia under 23s today, but he played earlier, but he showed glimpses of it on Saturday. I think there is a bit of hope in terms of the creative side of things because it was a bit stagnant against Northampton in terms of creativity. You're right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can find the solutions because I suppose if I was to give Cheltenham one thing to kind of grab onto, it's that apart from Bolton, I don't think it's as if you've been absolutely played off the park in the games you've had so far. Excuse me. It's been quite narrow margins, and then it's been an individual error that's sort of settled it. But actually, as a defensive unit, maybe you're not too far off potentially.
Yeah, Shrewsbury on the opening day was a bit of a poor game. Could have gone either way. I don't know if you've seen the goal, but it was a sort of Ben Williams tried to head it away, and it forced Southwood into a save, and then Bowman tapped it in. That was it. There wasn't really much in the game. Bolton was a mismatch. Bolton looked really good. Bolton looked every bit, genuine title contenders from that performance. They were streets ahead of Cheltenham. Then it was Reading away. I wasn't impressed with Reading. It was a cagey game. They put out quite a young team. Own goal settled it 1-0. Deflection. So, could have gone either way again. Bit unlucky not to come away with something. Portsmouth was really good. Pompey had all the game. It was a strange game because of the referee situation where the 2 officials got injured and they had to have a Pompey fan running the line, which sort of overshadowed what was a decent performance from Cheltenham. And they didn't have much of the ball, but they did create some good chances. Then it was Northampton, which was anti-climax really, but it was an 88th minute mistake from Lewis Freestone, who's otherwise had a brilliant start to the season. He sort of lunged in and didn't make contact with the ball, and again, small margins. And then the Barnsley game, Cheltenham were applauded off at half-time at 0-0. Really good, encouraging performance. And then suddenly, probably my lowest moment of the season so far was Cheltenham having a corner, 54th minute. Bonds and Circum, genuine mistake. Can't really criticise either of them. But they got in each other's way. Barnsley break, 4-on-1, 4-on-2, and it's 1-0. And you could see it happening. They were completely sliced. They completely sliced through Cheltenham.
But I suppose if I'm being a little bit generous, you've got Will Goodwin with, or no disrespect to Will Goodwin, he's made a massive step up in the last year. They've got Devante Cole, who's proven to score goals at this level in League One, so that does kind of show the disparity that I suppose Cheltenham are up against at the moment.
Yeah, and yesterday, Cheltenham were up against the Bristol Rovers team. They made 8 changes, but they've just tried to sign a player for 800 grand. Cheltenham broke their transfer record in January for Aidan Keener that was about 70 grand. So, rising to a maximum of 100. So, it's even Bristol Rovers who haven't had a great start, have they? I think they've got 6 points. They're chucking some cash at it. I think Goodwin's actually impressed me on the left of that front three in both the Pompey game and the Barnsley game. He got a whack last night. I don't think it's going to be anything too serious. It was an impact injury. So because he did start the season injured, Ferry started the season injured. Sean Long's been nursing a sore Achilles. He was forced off last night. It is concerning because the squad actually looks quite big on paper, but really there's not that many players available. But Barnsley in the end showed their quality in the second half, and Colt, you've got to give them credit for the way they worked the break. But it was painful to watch because you could just see it happening. As soon as the Bonds and Circum got in each other's way, it looked like a goal. And you should never concede from your own corner, should you? Really?
No, not ideally.
Happens more often than you think, actually. I feel like I've seen it quite a few times.
Well, I mean, just one more question from me, John. You mentioned Aidan Keener there. Is there a sign that he can provide some of that link that we've spoken about between midfield and attack?
I think if Keener had been signed in the summer and started the way he has this season, he'd be getting a lot of stick. but
Right.
because he did really well during the second half of last season, he's built up some credit, and he's got the fans on side, rightly so. He scored 6 goals, and he formed a really good partnership with Alfie May last season, and he is popular. He's not had a good start to the season, and you can tell that he's struggling for confidence. I mean, every attacking player in the team probably is without a goal in 8 games this season, but I'm not writing him off yet. Certainly not. He missed an open goal last night. I don't know if you've seen it, but that sums up a bit of Cheltenham's luck and a bit of the sort of start to the season he's had. He just needs something to go in off, deflection or something off his backside or something like that. And I think we know he can do it based on what he did second half of last season. So in terms of, I haven't really answered your question there. I just wanted to have my say on Keener, but he does tend to drop deep. But Wade keeps talking about wanting to get in between the posts, and that's where, because Street does a lot of his best work outside the box as well, and they're trying to get him, because I've been quite impressed with him so far. But again, he scored no goal last night. He hasn't put the ball in the right net yet, but I've been quite impressed with his all-round game and his work rate. But he's quite unselfish, and he runs and runs and runs. But one of them needs to start getting on the end of the balls into the box. But yeah, Keener's tidy. He's neat and tidy, and he can create. And he is a good footballer. He's just going through a difficult patch at the moment, but I think it could turn for him with one lucky goal or one wonder strike. It doesn't really matter. I think something needs to change in terms of his fortunes, and he needs to come good if Cheltenham are going to stay out. That's for sure.
Well, let's hope that's the case. Certainly feels like it needs either Alinka to come back fit or Pupion to really make an impact on loan from Brighton. And hopefully, one of those things will happen. Jon, such a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining us, and speak to you again soon.
Pleasure. Cheers, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Jon. So my next guest is Knappers from Cobb's Vlogs, Ben Knappman. How are you, Knappers?
Yeah, very good, Gab. Thank you for having me on the show. And it's been an eventful few days as a Fleetwood fan, and been a tough start to the season. 6 games in, I was working out. I've been to 8 games in all competitions, and it felt like I've been to 80. It really does. But we're only 8 games into a season, and it's been a bit of a wild one, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I may as well bring in Dan Finch, who's a Charlton Athletic fan, seeing as you played each other last time. Great to have you on as well, Dan. But I'm gonna start with you, Ben. What do you think Fleetwood Town need in their next manager after, of course, the dismissal of Scott Brown?
Someone that will engage with supporters, someone that will get supporters, back on the feet again and back wanting to watch the team again. There was a large portion of Scott Brown's 52 games where I did not want to go and watch Fleetwood Town play, which has never happened to me while watching the club in my 12 years as a supporter. We were all right, don't get me wrong. He did a steady job, I'd say the least, over his 52 games. But we now need someone with a bit of experience, a bit of someone that, goodwill, knows what the club needs, someone that will promote our youth players because they're vital towards making Fleetwood Town sustainable. I think we sold, £3-4 million worth of players in the last, 18 to 24 months alone, and that's rising, and the academy's rising as well. So, yeah, someone that can back, making the supporters, wanting to watch the team again, and a bit of an attacking football again as well would be nice.
Coming to you on this, Ed, it feels like there's a couple of things that Knappers has described there, because there's obviously the short-term aim of keeping Fleetwood in League One, which is obviously the number one priority, but also someone that can maybe develop players from the academy. They've obviously got very good facilities at Fleetwood, and they've made a point in recent years of trying to, bring players through. What do you think would be the kind of appointment that meets both objectives?
You're trying to get me to name a person now. I'm not quite sure if I can pull someone out of the bag with that. No, I completely agree with what you're saying, though. The thing I probably love most about Fleetwood is the youth players in this team. Keane Hayes is great. I've always been quite a big fan of Harvey McAdam. Phoenix Patterson likewise played a big part. But then it kind of feels like there's some perception that, yes, there is youngsters, but maybe they've also got a bit of pulling power, being able to get people in like Stockley and Marriott that we saw in the January window. They bring in Shimanga alone from Peterborough United. I remember seeing the news coming through about Scott Brown, and I don't know if this is weird to say. I wasn't surprised by it, but I also kind of was with the timing of it, if that kind of makes sense. Looking at the start of the season, I kind of looked and thought, okay, yeah, it does feel like he's really underperforming to the level I would have hoped to with the group of players he had, but at the same time, I also kind of thought it was going to come a bit later than it did.
Dan, we'll come on to Charlton in a moment, but what did you make of Fleetwood when you saw them on Saturday?
I didn't think they were that bad. I actually felt for the majority of the first half they ran the game. They were the better side for most of it. I felt at times they just looked like they didn't have the confidence. There was a lot of the times where they got the ball into those wide areas, and it was like if they put a cross here, we're in trouble. And with Stockley was winning everything, and that final ball just wasn't quite falling for Stockley or for who's the other? Was it Broom in the middle? And it just didn't quite seem to fit right. I didn't think they were that bad, but I mean, I guess the run of results is the problem. I mean, Dean Holden is someone I don't know if Fleetwood are considering, but someone that will play young players, instantly took a fan base that were falling apart and brought them back for a short period. Obviously, even to the point where when he was gone, Charlton fans weren't necessarily for it. So that could be someone that could be worth looking into for Fleetwood.
Yeah, Dean Holden, Knappers, how would you feel about that?
He was there last night. I know that for a fact. Yeah, Dean Holden, I'll be honest with you, was on my 5 as soon as the news came out because of the fact that he knows young players. And, obviously people just think of his, he's United days, but he worked with a lot of young players at Charlton, this season alone, Anderson, Asimwe, Cardew, just to name a few there as well. And, there's a lot of other players in that team at Charlton that are 25s. I'm looking at, Blackett, Taylor and Taylor doing the 25, aren't they? So it's quite a youngish team at Charlton, so he's used to that. Would he be on my list now? And I said on Sunday when we were recording for the League One podcast, I went, you shouldn't, have one manager in name and then kind of not, if you don't get me, you'd be disappointed. And unfortunately, I've got my hopes upon Carl Robinson because I just kind of think, well, it fits, every solution. I think he wants to get back into the game, more local to him as well. He's experienced. He's managed over 500 games at this level before as well. So, Carl Robinson, Dean Holden, Liam Richardson would all be on my list as well. The worst situation that I think we can do is appoint, someone like just retired, or someone like Scott Brown, or someone like Stephen Craney, or a Chris Beach, because I'd be like, well, what was the point of sacking Scott Brown? Scott Brown did all right for Fleetwood. He did. Was it the right decision sacking him? I think you'll see that with the next managerial appointment. I think if it's a good appointment, it was. If you're not improving on him, it's not a good appointment. And that's where I'll lay my thoughts on.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. Dan, what do you think Charlton need? Because you're also in a need of a manager after Holden departed.
I'm not really sure. I think, to be honest, it's someone that, again, needs to work with youngsters, have that ability to get those youngsters playing, because our squad is so young, as we just touched upon. I think that's going to be so important. Is
there a bit of a demand, Dan, for instant expectation with Charlton? Because it always feels like to me that Charlton are one of the big hitters at this level, and realistically, you do want to stay in League One for as little time as possible.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the general of the fan base just give us some optimism. Not necessarily promotion this year, obviously, ideally, but I think a little bit is let hope that the new owners find a way to turn us around. We've been struggling, and really get a manager that gets the squad together and keeps them together, gets the fan base involved, because of the owners and stuff. The fan base is quite distant right now. We need someone to pull it in, and ideally, turn the form as well. But Holden was doing that before the beginning of this season. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Ben, what did you think of Charlton? I don't know if you were at the rally on Saturday. What did you make of them?
Well, I said after about half an hour, and there's a couple of clips that I said where I really dug into Charlton. I didn't end up putting it in the video really, because I remember there was a couple of them where we were really getting at them, and there was a few boos behind the goal, and I went, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I went, someone, why is that good that they're booing? I went, they're on the players' back, and we've come. into their stadium, got at them. And I said before the game, a clip that obviously did make it into the video, when there's often talk about Jack Marriott doesn't want to be at the football club. Forget about him. Jaden Stockley is someone who does want to be at this football club, and he's played here. He did all right for them for a bit, but obviously things change in football. He needs to come here and be our number 9. He is our number 9. And be a big focal point for us, because he is our goal scorer. He is the one that's going to bring others into play. He might not be fit to play the whole game, but we need a big performance from him. He hit the bar. I don't know how that stayed out. And then obviously he scored a decent header as well. And really, was brilliant for 30, 35 minutes on the front line. I obviously think limited service after that kind of didn't help him, don't get me wrong. But I thought Charlton grew into the game. And when you got Alfie May into the team, and it's literally we switch off. And I'd honestly give probably 21 strikers out of 24 one opportunity at goal, and they don't take it. I think the 3 that you go one-on-one in League One most weeks are your Dion Scholes, your Colby Bishop, and Alfie May would be my number 1. Going through, running in behind the defenders and putting it in underneath the goalkeeper. And it was a brilliant finish, and Alfie May was a difference. And then second half again, right from kickoff, really, they got right at us, and again had a succession of corners, set pieces, got out. It was a stonewall penalty, and obviously after that they saw out the game, and it should have been 3, it possibly should have even been 4. The only one thing I'll say, they did a lot in the first half, but they didn't test the goalkeeper enough. Matt Mullen, it was his 3rd game. His first game away from home in a big stadium. You've got to bear in mind, big crowd, biggest crowd he's ever played in front of, obviously for us as well. So that's one thing they'll be disappointed about in the first half. But I thought Fleetwood defended very well in that first half as well. So Charlton were all right. Didn't really blow up any trees, but I think obviously they need a managerial appointment, and quick. I think it's a good time now to appoint. I think you get to the end of this week, maybe Friday. I think by the absolute limit of appointing, you say your hellos, you maybe get the squad in for a bit of a bonding, and then you kind of start, Saturday, potentially Monday as well, and you've got a full week going into the games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, just give me a picture of what the first thing the next the next Charlton manager has got to do to turn results around.
Well, the first thing he's got to do is got to go see our physio and find out when Kamara and Fraser are coming back, because the midfield is we just can't create at the minute. We're really struggling. The only outlet we've got is Alfie May. So really, they're the 2 creative players in our midfield. We need to find out when they're back.
Do you not know at all? Our fans completely in the dark as to when they...
So we keep being told that Kamara's close, but he's been close for the last 3 games. So we don't know what that means. Fraser got injured during the first game of the season, and we haven't seen him since. So we have no idea. But really, he just needs to find a settled team. We've a lot of chopping and changing. We did a lot of our business quite late in the window, or before games. Like Teo Eden, for example, came in I think after the Leyton Orient game. So the defence, especially Hector, Jones, get them up to match fitness and get them going. Get Eden up to match fitness. Obviously, we've signed Tanai Watson. He needs to basically have a pre-season. So really, it's almost like whoever the new manager is needs to be given a few weeks to get everybody up to fitness, and then start kind of motoring on and getting into that period of once you've played 10, 15 games, this is what you've got now, go for it, because we need to get everyone to that fitness level.
Yeah, absolutely. Same question to you then, Ben. What's the first thing the next Fleetwood manager is going to have to do?
Get us winning games of football as quickly as possible. And obviously that's the easy answer. Of the League One, I said the League One merry-go-round doesn't wait for anyone on Saturday. And I was thinking, when I said that, I thought, he's in trouble for the first time. And then I got back on the coach and someone asked me, do you think he'll go? And I went, no, not a chance. And obviously now, if it is Carl Robinson, if it is Dean Holden, if it is Liam Richardson, whoever it is, it'll be interesting to see. He's got to be someone that comes in from outside the football club, first of all, not someone that's already there.
Not a Stephen Craney type appointment that you've had.
Matt Lawler did very well last night, but we need someone with real experience.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you've had times where it's like there's this really highly rated coach like Simon Wiles, for example, a couple of years ago. It was like he's an amazing but ultimately I think it can be very difficult sometimes for managers with no senior experience to just come in and do it straight away. So I mean, is there a particular change that you think the next manager's got to do? Is there a formational thing? Is there a stylistic issue?
There's two, Gab, really. I think the first thing would be for me is I don't know what was going on in the training ground. Now, I think Scott, I don't know if they were training too much or too hard because the amount of injuries we would have. So we would go into a match week where Stockley would say be injured. He would come back, play 60 minutes, and then be injured for another 2 games. Wiredu got injured at Carlisle, started the next game after he's out for 3 months, started the next game, and then all of a sudden he's now out in the brace, on his, I think, his right boot. So again, I think we need to have a look at how they're training. Are they doing enough? The players don't even look fit enough at the moment. We look like we're struggling. I know there's extra time in games, but the other day, there was 12 minutes added on at the Valley. Even without this new EFL time, there was always going to be 12 minutes added on regardless because there was 3 or 4 injuries. There was, 7 or 8. There was lows, wasn't there, Dan? And the second thing is we have to stop playing a back 3. But the only way to do that, we don't have a fit left back. Adam McGorrin came in from Celtic, played half an hour last night, got injured. We don't have another left back bar Josh Hill, and he's our best centre back, and he's the only reason our defence is what it is. So again, that's the other change. I think it'd be very interesting to see whoever comes in, but I think a back forward would be desperately needed. So formation change and see what they're doing on the training ground and improve the fitness.
Yeah, that sounds like that's pretty huge for Fleetwood, and hopefully the next manager can find the solutions. Likewise for Charlton. Gents, lovely stuff on Cod's vlogs. Ben, thanks so much for joining us. Likewise, Dan, for your insight on Charlton Athletic. And see you again soon, folks.
Thank you.
So we're bringing in Jake Tonge, a familiar face on EFL Debate, to discuss the Imps at one point. But first,
he's way too chill. Look at him.
I love that little pose, the arm on
what
the
a day.
Yeah, love it. We're also joined by Tom Picillo, who no longer of the Grecian cast now. He's been promoted to official club podcast on Exeter City. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Gab. How are you?
Yeah, great to have you on the show, mate. I suppose Ed's not necessarily quite so keen to.
Why?
I think it's got something to do with Burton nicking all of our players and still not coming in away with the result. So only joking, of course. Ed.
Well, I think it's interesting, I suppose, that we draw that comparison because, to be honest, I would have said Burton would be likelier to do what Exeter City have done before the start of the season and been that sort of early high flyer. Tom, can you just paint a picture of how City have been able to get the results you have, because it's been so impressive?
I think it's a tricky one, really, because
I think Ryan Trevor is what it's called.
Very good point. No, in reality, I think a lot of it is down to the recruitment that Gary, Marcus, both did. Malcolm as well, the chief scout, did for the club over the summer. I think that coming off the back of last season, a lot of players are out of contract. You saw the likes of Josh Key, Archie Collins move on, Jamal Blackman, of course, left for Burton Albion, and so did Jake Caprice in the end. Sam Nombe eventually sold on to Rotherham for a big fee as well. So it was a total rebuilding job that Gary had to do, and he's done it brilliantly, if I must say so myself. I think the recruitment this summer has been some of the best that I've seen at St James Park in a very long time. I think yet again, Exeter City are managing to find these hidden gems, whether it's Vilson Asalo, who didn't have, Ed, I'm sure you would probably say that he probably didn't have the best of times at Burton, but he's come to Exeter City. He's obviously taken a bit of learning from Aston Villa and his loan spell at Burton as well. And he's come into Exeter City and he's flourished. He's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, in my opinion. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And then you've got the loan signings, Dion Rankin, Ryan Trevitt, Jack Aitchison, who's come in on a permanent deal. So many others around the pitch. Tom Carroll, Reece Cole, who I'm speaking to a bit later. It's amazing, really, what Gary's managed to do with the side over one summer. And somehow he's managed to turn us into what was a really good team last year. And I don't think many people really thought that we'd build from that. But it looks like we're doing so at the moment, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the loan market, Tom. I want to come to Jake on this because Lincoln have actually gone away from that this season and maybe not so keen to use the loans. But yeah, we look at the impact Ryan Trevitt, Viljami Sinisalo and Dion Rankin, who Tom mentioned, have had on Exeter City. You know, it is such an effective way of getting affordable quality into the building when you've not got a top end budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you come to me about it. We've probably had one of the biggest ones in the league in recent years with Brennan Johnson. You can basically sign a player that is far too good for your level and far too good for your team, and you can use them for a season any way that you like. And, you know, Exeter are doing that.
You just have to cope with the attachment, don't you? Never fall in love, as they say.
That's the problem, Tom. So when they all go, and in like 3 years, when Ryan Trevitt earns a move to someone like Arsenal for 50 million, just like Brennan's gone to Tottenham for 50 odd million, we're sort of still clinging ourselves and going, you know what, Forest, you're welcome for all that. You'll be good. You know what, Brentford, you did all right, but we started the ball rolling. So it's a really good way. And you know what, Exeter are doing it really well. I think it's always important to have loan players in the squad, even if it's just filler. But some loan players rise to the top and make an instant impact like Trevitt and like others have done. Dion Rankin especially as well from Chelsea. So Lincoln, you're right, I've gone away from that. We've only got 3 loanees, but you look at them all, Gav. Jack Vale, obviously, we've not seen yet, but Burrows and Alex Mitchell have both played big roles so far this season. Burrows has come in from the start, whether that be at left wing back or right wing back. And Alex Mitchell actually played really well when we knocked out Sheffield United out of the Carabao Cup. He stepped in for Paulie O'Connor, who's had tonsillitis. So loan players are very important, and it's a good way of bolstering your ranks, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, what's the sort of mood in the fan base? Because I think when Gary Caldwell took the job, you're sort of thinking, you know, it's a great opportunity in one ways, but in another way, how much further can you take Exeter City in League One? And I suppose at the moment it looks like he's taken you a lot further. Obviously, only 6 games in. Are you able to kind of check your expectations? Is it a case of just sort of enjoying the ride and seeing where that takes you?
This is a question that I'm going to ask Reese a bit later when I interview him for Park Life, the official club podcast. It's something that I'm really interested to see. How far can we take this momentum? How much does momentum play into the start of a season, and can you take that forward beyond? And you know, we've seen teams do it in previous years where they've sort of come out of nowhere, built up some early momentum, and then flourished, gone on to get promotion. I think maybe Leyton Orient were a good example of that last year from League Two. Started really well, and that momentum just carried them forward. Of course, we're playing them on Saturday, so probably quite a good example. But yeah, I think the mood from the fan base, at least, is really quite good at the moment. We're watching really entertaining football. Gary likes to play a brand of football that is really exciting. He likes to play the ball on the ground, play through the lines, pace with our wingers or wing backs, and get beyond the full-backs, put balls into the middle, and somebody will be there to finish. Not Sam Nombe anymore, unfortunately, but I'm sure James Scott will do the job. Jack Aitchison will.
He seems to be revolutionising strikerless formations now, because it's basically Sonny Cox who's your out-and-out striker, really, isn't it, in this team at the minute?
Well, no, Musquay came in on deadline.
Musquay, sorry, yes, forgot about him. Yeah.
So we've brought in Admiral Musquay, who looks a really good signing. I think he probably hasn't got the goal return in the past that he might have liked, but I've heard from Wycombe fans, for example, that he was a really strong player when he was playing for them. And I think that when he is given a good opportunity in this Exeter City side, with the service that he'll get from the 2 fullbacks, whether it be Dimitri Mitchell on one side, Vincent Harper as well, or Zach Jules, I guess, from that side as well, and then Dion Rankin on the other, I think you've got a recipe for success there, and I can only see Admiral Musquay adding to that, I guess, and also forming a really good strike partnership with James Scott when he comes back from his injury.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, what did you make of the Grecians when they won at your place?
I wasn't there, thankfully, so we can talk about that. Really impressive, really impressive. I was there unsure of them at the start of the campaign. think we all had this idea in our heads that someone like Nombe was going to move on. A lot of the players heading up to Staffordshire, whether that's been actually a worthwhile move or not, we'll have to see. But what they've done, I completely agree with Tom. The recruitment's been great. I think Carroll's been so underrated for his contribution in midfield.
That
Really,
balance
really
of
important
youth
player.
and experience, Ed,
Yeah.
is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it makes sense really because I feel like the Carroll signing came through and it got kind of ignored by a lot of people. But when you think about where he's been before, it's a really high caliber one to pick up for a League One side. A lot of people would have probably said at the time is a mid-table bottom half outfit.
Totally agree. And I think what's even more impressive is that we've signed 3 midfielders over the summer, 3 key midfielders. Tom Carroll, Ryan Trevitt and Reece Cole, and they're working together. They've gelled so incredibly quickly, dominating the midfield battle in pretty much every game that we've played so far, maybe bar Portsmouth, but I still think we had a good showing in that one. And they've gelled so quickly despite only being at the club for 2 months. They're playing like a trio who have been at a club for 2-3 years, maybe even more. And I mean, I've spoken to them personally, and they've got a great friendship between the 3 as well, which I think is really positive. And I mean, I think that is maybe the I suppose the key that unlocks the door, in that we've got a great dressing room at the moment. We've got players who really enjoy playing with each other, and that again can only be a recipe for success.
Certainly can. I suppose what I'm curious about as well, Tom, is that you mentioned Dimitri Mitchell and Dion Rankin there, and I initially expected them to operate as wing backs, and then whether it was the sort of the dearth of attacking options, maybe, or the fact Admiral Musk only signed on deadline day, which I think was the Thursday before, or even the Friday before the game at Burton. You actually, and Rankin, I think, has been playing there for a few weeks. They played sort of behind Reece Cole, if you like, or as kind of a front 3 rather than as wing backs. Is that something you'd like to see going forward, or do you think there'll be times where you think Rankin and Mitchell are going to be needed to provide that width and thrust from the wing back roles?
Yeah, so we've been playing a couple of different sort of systems so far. What I will say is that the systems we do play are very fluid. Whilst sometimes they can seem quite rigid when you've got these wing backs and the midfield quite tight, what you'll actually often see is wing backs with players ahead of them on the flanks, and that is something that Dion Rankin is incredible at doing. It's actually something that Josh Key was excellent at doing last season, and Rankin has basically replaced him in that regard. And then Dimitri Mitchell, that's what he does. He can get forward and provide from the left, or score a goal like he did a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I think what we've got is a bit of dynamism with regard to which formations we're going to play, which systems we're going to employ, and I think that we can get at different teams in different ways because of that. And I think that's only a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just finally from me, Tom, have your I suppose I asked this a little bit earlier, but has your sort of expectations for the season even subconsciously kind of shifted? Because I suppose you did give me a bit of stick when I said 17.
We'll be able to tell if you're lying, by the way.
Yeah, well, look, I think that we've got to take it game by game, Gab. That's what we've got to do. No, I don't know. I think it's a difficult one. We didn't expect to be where we are at this stage in the season. I think, even I think Gary would probably admit that as well. I think that, maybe overperforming is the wrong word, but we are performing really well. And whether we can keep that up, I don't know. I think that, we've never finished in a promotion position from League One. We've never been in the Championship, Exeter City. So I think that any ambition to be there maybe is something that we're
not ready for, possibly.
Well, I wouldn't say that we're not ready for it. If we push for it and we get it, then we'll embrace it. But It's not something that I don't think we're necessarily playing for that this season. What we want to do is improve year on year, and we're one of the most sustainable football clubs in the country. We're celebrating our 20th year of trust ownership this week, and I think what a brilliant sort of occasion to celebrate it, being top of the league in a position that we probably didn't expect ourselves to find ourselves in, but here we are, and we're having a great time down in the southwest.
I can tell. I wanted to also ask you just finally about Alex Hartridge, because he seems to be having his best season since maybe the 2021 campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And so is Will Aimson. I think he's been in pretty much every League One team of the week so far, and so is Ryan Trevitt for that matter. But yeah, Alex Hartridge, excellent player. I think probably the latter half of last season, he made a few mistakes which maybe brought out a little bit of worry from a few Exeter City fans. But this year, he seems to have eradicated all potential mistakes from his game. He looks a really solid central defender. And, I don't know if there necessarily was interest this summer. I would expect that there would be some because he's an excellent talent. And he's probably been one of our better players so far this season. I'm really enjoying watching him head away balls, make clearances. Even from the first game of the season against Wickham, I thought he was probably man of the match in that one.
Yeah,
It looks excellent. So, yeah, long may it continue. I think Alex Hartridge is only going to go on to better things, really, and hopefully that is with Exeter City.
Let's hope that's the case. Tom, it's been so lovely having you on. We're probably going to speak in shortly for the official club podcast, so I'll see you then. But thanks for joining us, and speak to you soon, mate.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Cheers, Gab.
Cheers. So finishing off on the general League One stuff then, Jake. Well, actually, I did want to talk to you about Lincoln City. I mean, it was a 1-1 draw with Bristol Rovers. Looked to me, I did watch the extended highlights earlier, and it seemed to be a bit of a tight game where, or tight sort of defensive display from Lincoln City, and not necessarily creating quite so many chances. Although you did come very close to snatching all 3 points.
Yeah, we obviously, Lincoln from the last the year under Mark Kennedy, we're very good defensively. We're very organised. Not many sides can score passes. Plymouth struggled last year. Ipswich struggled last year, and those were the 2 runaway teams. Sheffield Wednesday only scored once past us last season, which tells you everything you need to know, really. Yes, we did have Regan Poole, but we don't anymore. And I genuinely think we're better off for it, Gavin. I'm sure we can come on to that later. But defensively, excellent. Again, you look at the highlights, Gav, you watch them. We didn't, apart from the header before the corner they scored from, didn't really trouble Lucas Jensen massively. Offensively, we struggled. Obviously, we didn't have a centre forward in the matchday squad. We had to play Mandroyu and Rico Hackett in a front 2 it was a front 3. Alistair Smith sort of played as an inside right-sided forward, which is very bizarre. But yeah, like you said, I genuinely think we had the best chances to win the game. Matthew Cox won man of the match from Bristol Rovers, and when a keeper wins man of the match, you often think, they must have been pummeled with shots or whatever. But he stepped up in big moments. There's one, Lars Sorensen, in the first half. If he squares it to Ethan Hamilton, he's got a tap in. There's one pretty much directly after Bristol Rovers score. Lars Sorensen won. There's maybe about 50
Oh,
yards
yes, I did watch the Lars Sorensen. He took Ryan Woods just out of the game, didn't he?
He's a monster, isn't he?
I didn't even know he was that explosive, Jake.
Yeah, and do you know what? He should have scored, Gab, right at the end, 95th minute, whatever. I think if he tried to hit it hard, and I can understand why, but if he had just dinked it over Cox, it would have gone in the net. So you sat thinking, do you know what? We've conceded 2 90-plus minute equal. We'd be top of the league by 2 points if we hadn't conceded either of those. So, never mind. But a good point on the road. Bristol Rovers.
Look at Ed. It's like, what are you meaning?
It's like saying if you won all 6 games, you'd be top of the league, Jake. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I know. But do you know what? Bristol Rovers, yes, we won 6-3 there last year, but Bristol Rovers are a good side. When they get Ryan Woods ticking, and when they get when Collins hits a bit of form. I know he scored last night, but just to be general League One for a second, Gab. But when I watched Bristol Rovers on Saturday, they need a striker. They needed to get Clark Harris over the line.
Well, they seem to be like a couple of their best openings were like pop shots from Collins from outside the box, and I do wonder if they had an actual reliable centre forward. Would he have maybe more options? Would they be able to create more chances? Yeah. So we'll see with that one. But in terms of Lincoln City's prospects, do you think playoffs could be on the cards?
I want to say yes, Gab, based on how well we've played. But I also that might be underestimating some of the teams below us in the table who haven't yet picked up the pace in terms of points. I would expect Barnsley to be a little bit better, Blackpool maybe to sort of come up from nowhere. Wickham have been better under Bloomfield, so I'd expect them to sort of mix up around us. But the way that we're playing, I think you'd have to say that playoffs are a possibility, because at home, 2 games, 6 goals against 2 probably teams that you'd have in the same bracket as us. You win your home games, you draw your away games. When we've won 1, lost 1, and drawn 2, that sort of averages out just enough.
It's like last season all over again, isn't it?
No,
just draws. Just draws
well,
to
exactly.
bank all the time.
Do you know what? I said this to Ben when we recorded on Sunday. The difference between Lincoln and Fleetwood this year is, Gab, Lincoln have been able to turn the draws into wins so far. I know we're 6 games in. I know. Fleetwood have turned those draws...
And turn the wins into draws.
Yeah, well, yeah. And Fleetwood have turned their draws into defeats. And then you've seen Scott Brown lose his job, obviously. So, look, Gab, playoffs are on, mate. Absolutely. We've got lots of good options. Up front, we were light last year. We've got 3 strikers on the books at the moment, which is very rare for Lincoln to have multiple strikers. We've got exciting attacking players. Rico Hackett's hit the ground running. Danny Mandroy, I think, has been nominated for Player of the Month. He's had a great August. You've got Teddy Bishop, who's come off the bench and been fantastic. You've also got Jack Moylan joining in January from Shelbourne. We're very excited for that. He's been ripping it up in Ireland, and at 22, he's going to hopefully help Shelbourne qualify for Europe, which should be good for them. But and we're just really excited, mate. And we've kept the defensive structure from last year, and we've added goals. And you know what? Based on how football works, if you stop conceding, you score quite a few, you tend to be all right. So long way around it, Gab. Yes, we're going to finish in the playoffs.
Let's hope that's the case. If only there was someone who predicted Lincoln City to finish a lot
higher. I know, Gab. If only you knew what he was talking about.
Absolutely. Ed, I did want to get on to some general League One chat. We've obviously, I think you're kind of looking at a really interesting top 6 where you've got
it's Bolton. So hard, isn't it? Because it's like you're looking at the entire table and you kind of I'm reminding myself, I actually went back and looked at the 12 months ago, this situation. Portsmouth were top. We had a couple of teams quite low down. Burton had their atrocious start, which didn't worse than the one they've had now. And you think about where they end up at the end, and it's just that realization that 6 games is such a small amount of the season, isn't it?
Sure.
Really, it's I find it really difficult at the minute. I can't really, in my head, I kind of have 2 in my mind who I think look like genuine relegation struggles at the minute. And that's Burton and Cheltenham with the way they've been playing. And I possibly, maybe on occasion, think about someone like Shrewsbury in that, which is a bit weird to say because. Well, potentially, yeah. I'd maybe say I'd probably have Leyton Orient in a similar bracket with how they've been performing largely.
So far, I think Orient are going to be fine.
I would as well, but it's so difficult to really come to major conclusions yet with how everyone's been performing so far.
Jake, what have you made?
We're just in that stage, aren't we? Where if this weekend could completely flip again. Someone on the bottom half ends up in the top 6 and someone... It's really difficult to chalk conclusions at that stage.
Sorry. Carry on, Gab.
Jake, what have you made of Lincoln's opponents? Any that sort of stand out in a particularly good way? I suppose Bolton Wanderers would be the obvious pick from that, wouldn't it? But in terms of potential strugglers, are there teams in there that you'd be worried about?
Yes, most teams, actually. Shrewsbury, I was deeply concerned by when we
it's worth mentioning Shrewsbury, Gab. They've got 3 wins and it's the current bottom 3 they've beaten. Everyone else they haven't scored against in the league game.
Yeah,
so I'm a little bit mixed on them at the minute.
I was very worried about them. The weather played a big part in that game, and they had their one opportunity in with Taylor Perry and they didn't take it. And they had quite a few opportunities actually, and they didn't really go for the throat of us. And then when we were able to score, it was sort of game over. They don't look like they're going to score many. Udo is probably their only outlet so far this year. I know he scored a goal at Fleetwood. I was really concerned about Wickham when we played them. I thought they were really poor. I know they've picked up 10 points since we played them. but they were really poor. They looked like they didn't have an identity, and I understand that Bloomfield has probably instilled that a little bit more, and that will come with time. Blackpool, again, I didn't think were great. They did everything apart from the final action, if that makes sense. So
Right.
They brought Jordan Rhodes on, and he actually played really well. I think he's going to do really well for Blackpool. But they just couldn't play the right final pass. They were playing into Beasley. They were playing long into Beasley, but he was like 10 yards in front of our defenders, and when he turned, like O'Connor and Jackson were already on him, so he had no idea what to do. I was disappointed with Blackpool. In terms of strugglers, we played Northampton. I think they'll be fine. Who else played? Bolton will obviously be fine. I'm trying to figure out who the other team we've played.
Did you just put Bolton in the Struggers category?
Northampton.
You just said Struggers and then said Bolton.
No, I said Bolton will be all right. I said. Is that new haircut, Ed? You can't hear me properly.
How does that work? That makes no sense.
Anyway, Bristol Rovers, I think obviously they've not got the striker and they wanted. But again, they didn't break us down. And I don't know whether that's how good we were, or how poor they were. They just couldn't break us down. So, Bristol Rovers might have to wait until January to have an informed striker or a striker that's going to do any good for them. So maybe you see Bristol Rovers sort of swinging it around the 17th mark until January, where they might push on. So, do you know what, Gab? Most teams we've played have been pretty crap, but maybe that's because we've made them look that way.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how you like to think of it. Listen, gents, such a pleasure to have you on the League One podcast this afternoon. Go check out Jake's channel, channel 72, and the League One podcast, of course, he's part of, which is also for Ben Knappman of Knappers, who we had on earlier. Thanks as always to Ed Walker as well, the Burton Albion fan and League One expert. This has been EFL Debate, the League One podcast, and we'll see you again next week.